Well, organ harvesting, another conspiracy theory proven true. Under RFK Jr., the Department of Health and Human Services released this report showing that U.S. hospitals have been harvesting organs from patients who weren't dead. Here's the report. It showed that in the hundreds of cases that HHS reviewed of organ donations, nearly 1/3 of the patients, 30%, showed signs of life at the time their organs were taken from them. These patients either had not died or still showed neurological signs incompatible with organ donation. Like they're still alive. Who cares? Just go in and take their liver. I mean, this is like Ukrainian level stuff here.
I just wonder, how do hospitals not know the difference between dead and alive? Isn't that like the first thing you learn in medical school?
You would think.
Is how to know when someone's not dead?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jacob Boyens has been studying and warning about organ harvesting and human trafficking. He's now urging Congress to establish dedicated human trafficking courts, and he joins us today. Does he? Yes. Okay. He does join us today. Thank you so much for joining us. This report calls this taking of live organs a lack of training, they say. They say it only happens sometimes. It doesn't tell us really whether there's pressure to get those organs, where they go. Do you buy that?
Not at all. Thank you for having me on the show, and a great segment with the previous guest, and so much going on here. When we really talk about human trafficking, I think where America is losing the battle in human trafficking is it doesn't truly understand the breadth of the industry. So organ harvesting is very prevalent around the world. I recall last year in November, I meet with the vice chairman of Interpol out of Nigeria, and he's saying, Yaku, just heads up, organ harvesting cartels and sects are moving across the southern border under the Biden administration. It's well documented around the world of people waking up with a kidney missing, saying, call law enforcement, call the hospital. Organs are valuable, and they're marketed through American hospitals. And it's not a faux pas. This is not a misstep, or we don't know what's dead and what's alive. We're doing microscopic surgery from different states on patients that are alive with robots, for crying out loud, in this country. No, it's an industry that's part of human trafficking. And you said it earlier, follow the money. When you start looking at how Wall Street benefited from an Epstein cabal, how Wall Street is benefiting from organ harvesting, how we're banking the sale of human beings and children and organs in this country. Unfortunately, we have now an international community being made aware of that. The organ harvesting rings, the leading rings around the world, are all setting up shop in the United States. And yes, they have come across our borders in the last 40 years to say, well, there's money to be made, and when there is demand, there'll be supply.
I mean, where do these organs go?
A lot of the organs are actually funneled through the legal systems. As you see here in this report, how our RFK is saying, look, we're going to revoke your license. You've got to come up to compliance. You have to rewrite internal protocol. So if you really pay attention, when people speak, listen, they'll tell you who they are. The internal protocol is written so loose within the hospital systems that they create holes like Swiss cheese where they can slip through the cracks. A lot of the organs are funneled through the legal system. This is not even black market. There's a huge black market a black market for children's organs. A child heart at $12,000, for instance, in America at the moment. Child under 12. That heart goes for $12,000 in the black market. This is what we're talking about here, that RFK is uncovering, is within the legal system, within the hospital system, where nurses, medical reps are on the take, doctors know. And this is, we're talking about taking life prematurely in order to harvest a particular organ. And it's well documented here, and good for RFK. I have said before, I think he will be the secretary under this administration that will go down with the most victories, because he's actually kicking over the correct rocks. He's looking at the right place.
The report doesn't say ages. It didn't even occur to me that they would be children, so that's horrific. Here's what puts my spidey sense up. The report says this happens mostly in rural, small hospitals in poorer communities. Now, obviously, poorest populations are the most vulnerable. They're the least likely to make a ruckus. They're least likely to afford a lawyer to sue. This obviously is very suspicious. What do you make of that?
Human trafficking, so we started fighting human trafficking in 1994 when my sister was trafficked. 6 years, took us 6 years to rescue Ilanka. 2001, 2010, we had no laws for minors. 2015, all of a sudden, we rewrite the definition. Human trafficking is the exploitation of persons, whether it's an organ or sex or debt bondage, the exploitation of persons through the mechanisms of force, fraud, coercion. Really, in layman's term, what is it? It's the exploitation of vulnerability. Rural communities are more vulnerable. They're not loud. They don't get attention. A child in the projects is easier to traffic than a child that is in a stable community. But it's still a hospital. It's still licensed. It still carries federal and state licenses. It's not operating outside of licensure. It's still within the constitutional law of the United States. It's a hospital. It's just easier to hide these crimes in small communities where the sheriff runs the town, where you can control the police chief, where people are on the take. But it happens in major hospitals too. I do not want us to believe that it's just in rural communities. This is very prevalent throughout our country. It's not as prevalent as sex trafficking by number. It's not as prevalent as maybe debt trafficking or labor trafficking. But one is too many. One human being whose life is taken to take their organ is too many.
I mean, I just think it all sounds so incredibly demonic to me. The idea that a child's heart, a child's liver, a child's whatever is being transplanted into another child, it doesn't sound like that's happening here. It seems to me these things are being used in our research for pretty nefarious purposes. That this isn't just going. You're not taking a heart from a child and putting it in another child. Is that your experience here?
Well, can I just make a distinction at what I think the report says is that these people died because of it. Like they were not quite dead. We don't know if they would have died otherwise. They were on the verge of death, and then they died. It wasn't people who were otherwise okay, and oops, there's no kidney anymore, right?
You're nailing it. And if you would only know what happened through COVID with organ harvesting.
Oh my God. Okay.
You can only imagine. Some of the leading organ harvesting experts in the world are friends of mine, and we have investigated this for decades. Through COVID, when you start talking about COVID protocol and you can't see grandma and she's in a hospital and she is on COVID protocol, the nefarious activities, you're right, it is induced death for the purpose of harvesting an organ as soon as possible. This is family members that were told, sorry, we couldn't save your loved one, but there was neurological function. You know, maybe one kidney was shutting down, but there's a second kidney. This is induced death. This particular report that RFK uncovered, that the secretary uncovered, is talking about within HHS induced death. People are led to
killing
death.
People. You've killed them. That's murder.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is murder. This is murder. This may be the most egregious. This is looking at a human being going, you have no value. Now, if you look at our culture today in society.
Someone who went into the hospital to live. You don't go to the hospital if you want to die.
These are the spawns of Satan. This is demonic at the nth degree. It is to steal, kill, destroy. This is to look at a human being going, you have no value. What can you offer me? What commodity? How can I commoditize you? Sex? Great, we'll do sex. Labor? What do you see the left screaming all day long today? Don't take our slave workers. Don't take the people that we can pay minimum wage. Don't talk about deportations. Oh, so you want to underpay folks. So you think some people are less than. To the point where you would kill somebody to take an organ. Now, to your point earlier, is it necessarily a direct transplant? The numbers are not a science yet. We're looking at that. But what I can tell you is causation and correlation. I can tell you that in sex trafficking, there is a radical spike that now a third of the cases, we do rescues every week, of sex trafficking of American children and American adults. A third of our cases now have spiritual ritual abuse. McKinney, Texas, we go into an apartment and there's blood sacrifice with organs. And animals' organs. So it's not all necessarily for transplant. As egregious as it is, we have cults and culture that have moved into America that is not part of our foundation. Our Constitution was written off of the Word of God. There is literal blood sacrifice consumption of human human tissue in this country. It is a combination of demonic activity. And yes, at times within the organized system, it is transplants, but it's all of it, and not as prevalent as sex trafficking, but way too prevalent. This is America. I'm from Africa. I'm a legal immigrant to this country. I'm from South Africa. We've got voodoo, black magic, and witchcraft in Uganda and South Sudan and Sierra Leone. We know this. We understand them eating a heart of a child, and they believe they have eternal life. Not in America, but now I'm telling you, yes, in America.
Ladies and gentlemen, our bodies are under attack. It's not just from the air that we breathe or the food that we eat. We're being exposed to mRNA technology injected into our food supply, spreading through shedding, and now 5G radiation, saturating our environments, frequencies we still don't fully understand. I just did a deep dive interview today specifically on this problem, and the guest that I talked about said we are facing like an extinction level event right now with the amount of things that are being bombarding our lives with. These threats disrupt our biology at a cellular level, weakening immunity, inflaming our systems, damaging our gut, the control center of our health. That's why we take Kimchi 1 from our friends at Brightcore Nutrition. Each capsule is packed with over 900 strains of probiotics, live enzymes, antioxidants to flush out toxins. The best part is you'll get 25% off right now. Use the code REDACTED by going to mybrightcore.com/redacted, or even better, you'll get 50% off and free shipping if you just jump on the phone with these guys and develop a relationship with them. They're an American company. They have a team dedicated to our show specifically. So call them 1-888-404-6312. Get up to 50% off and free shipping. I'm telling you, this is part of my daily supplement routine. It is fantastic. Check them out today. Get 25% off with that code by going to mybrightcore.com/redacted, or get 50% off by just jumping on the phone with them. 888-404-6312. Yeah, and as someone in the chat just says, this is much bigger than even we're talking about now. This is a massive story, absolutely disgusting and demonic. You're going to be testifying in front of Congress, I think, next week. Is that correct? What are you hoping Yeah,
with this new court, thank you. We are instituting with Aiken Law. This is 2 years in the making. Really, where we're failing in the human trafficking conversation is the judiciary. Nobody's ever touched the judiciary. And we just published the white paper where we have bipartisan support, believe it or not, from Senate and Congress now to say, look, the judiciary is failing the American people. American people want justice. What do they want for Epstein? And I differ for some of the comments of your previous guest, we have to remember the survivor, not victim. There has to be justice for the survivor. And sometimes the survivors cannot speak. They are minors. They cannot speak up. So the judiciary fails them because Congress has codified law. Congress has done a great job over the last 20 years making anti-human trafficking law, funded 41 task forces, fund studies, etc. The justice system fails the American citizen consistently. Why? Because they plead it down. Human trafficking cases are not human trafficking cases. What did they do with Diddy? They dropped the sex trafficking charges the Friday before. They took RICO away, and all of a sudden it's transportation and prostitution. It'll always be kidnapping or drugs that they'll go for, but not human trafficking. The Justice Department do not want to prosecute these cases because of who's involved, because of the money involved. Because think about this for 1 second. Today in America, you can bank in a federal bank the sale of a human being's organ, legal or illegal. You can bank sex trafficking capital gained, but you can't bank marijuana. Not that I think you should be able to bank marijuana, but we're stricter on marijuana than we are on stealing organs and selling children for sex.
Jeez.
It's time for Wall Street to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is one of the darkest. I've talked about it openly on the show many, many times over the past couple of years. Sex trafficking.
Organ trafficking.
Organ trafficking is America's darkest secret. And would you say it's the largest operation in the world in America?
So the sale of women and children, this is not boys and men, and boys are on the rise at epic rates, but women and children alone, okay? And which is predominantly 97% female, right? So women and children alone, it's $152 billion a year spent in the world to buy and sell women and children for sex. A third of that, $52 billion, is inside the 50 states of the United States on American children. We're not talking about the hundreds of thousands of migrant kids. Separate conversation. American children. We have commoditized and monetized the cell of human beings, their organs, their time, their bodies, their sex. America is the leading nation on planet Earth, commercializing it, and supply meets demand.
Now, I have two more questions. Do you think that doctors are somehow incentivized to take an organ when a patient and maybe sold a bill of goods, like this guy's going to die, let's just take it, you'll get this? You know, I mean, we know that doctors were paid to push COVID shots and other vaccines. So is there some kind of like explanation why a doctor would do this?
Yes, there is. Look, money is always an objective, right? But sometimes it's compromise. And can I draw a correlation real quick? Sure. Sex is a very powerful weapon for good created by God. Healthy sex between a husband and a wife actually drives evil out of the home. Pornography corrupts. It's ripping American families apart. Well, sex is also the greatest tool to compromise. Sex is an amazing weapon for intelligence agencies to compromise high-ranking officials, to compromise doctors. So you'll see sex trafficking, doctors, COVID, very compromised. They threaten doctors with their licenses. We're going to oust you. You're going to lose your career. We're going to blackball you, right? Organ harvesting is they have something on a doctor, they invite him in, they entice him with, look, here's an extra $85,000 a year you can make off the books. No one knows. Cash free, cash money. And they partake. Why is it successful? Because they bait to the carnality of man. Man is corrupt in its nature unless it surrenders itself with a holy conviction and repentance to God and live with a righteous and just life. So when you present on the tray the poison apple, mankind in its nature takes it. And once one doctor compromises, maybe not by taking an organ, by cutting a corner. So here's what they do. And I have people inside the medical community, nurses and doctors that are whistleblowers that'll say, Yaku, it doesn't start with taking an organ. It starts with cutting a corner on a procedure. And we identify the doctors that will cut corners. We identify the doctors that would be on the take. Just like you could identify a police officer or a pastor that won't talk about pornography or sodomy. And they identify them and they sell them. They sell them this, hey, there's money here in the system. They train them how to do it in the system. This is not a warehouse where they're cutting a liver out of a kid in some back alley. That's not how America does white collar. We're trafficking children while they go to school. Yeah. We're cutting organs out of people in the hospital on the books.
Okay. All right. So then presumably this is something that HHS could do something about. I have one more question, and I hesitate to ask it because I know organ donation does save lives. But this very much gives me pause about being an organ donor because I don't want anything taken while I'm still alive. So should this appropriately give us pause about being an organ donor?
I think it should give us pause not to not help mankind, right? Not to donate tissue for research, but it should give us pause to say, well, perhaps we need to look at a state level within policy and legislation. Perhaps we need to draft some policy around the access of family, around the proof of current condition of a patient. Because again, when you looked at COVID, I have a family member that went in with a urinary tract infection that all of a sudden died from COVID 7 days later because they were put on protocol with remdesivir, and we could not talk to the patient, talk to the doctor. There was no explanation. That kind of behavior goes on post-COVID. Perhaps there needs to be some codifying of policy around when someone wants to donate an organ to be a supporting citizen to mankind, that there perhaps needs to be more transparency and access, proof, second, third opinion, perhaps, you know, and then, okay. in that field.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you for coming on Redacted. It was a pleasure to talk to you about this horrific story. But we have to. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.